My ultimate vision would be that every 35-year-old woman knows about perimenopause and knows what to expect. And that's a huge challenge for us right now. First of all, we're trying to overcome the myth that menopause means you're old. And it does not. The average age of menopause in North America is 51.2. It's halfway. We're the first generation of women who are turning 50 and have 50 more amazing years to plan for. But it's also an opportunity to listen to the taps on your shoulder, those little taps you get that say, maybe it's time to pay attention to how you eat, move, and sleep and manage stress, right? So it's an opportunity to invest in your health, to pay attention, to listen to those little triggers, warning signs, whatever you want to call them, and say, I bet if I just tweak this, or like you said, you invested in getting in the best shape possible. Another way to look at that would be like my own personal journey. And I talk about this in my TED Talk. I remember, forget the exact year, but it was on New Year's Eve. And I was laying in my bathtub and I had heard that Oprah had done this. So I thought, well, if it's good enough for Oprah, it was good enough for me. I gave thanks to my body, and I had never done anything like that ever. My bathtub was a place where I went and read all the magazines and and all the articles about it, how to eat better and move better and be better. And for the first time, I actually ditched the magazines and I looked down at my body and I said, thanks for carrying me this far on my journey. And thank you for giving me 2 amazing children. I've had just a different relationship with my body ever since. Yes, I am heavier than I was when I was 30. That is a headspace that I have grown to love and to accept. And whenever anybody talks to me about weight, I always, first and foremost, your health is really important. So your weight plays a role in your heart health, in preventing diabetes, all of those things. But aside from that, if you are 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier than you were in your younger days, it's just more of you to love.
Well, I think our conception, it used to be back in the 18th century that people were loved for being a little more plump because it meant that they were, doing well.
Yes,
financially.
It did. Yes, it totally meant that. It meant something completely different. And the other thing is in those days, women lived to be 50. So menopause was a non-event, essentially. And now we expect to live to be 85 to 100 years old. So, we have to change our paradigm about what that looks like. And we can decide to adopt all of the myths and the stereotypes and assume that we're going to, get fat, lose our brains, pee our pants. There's tons of messages that are delivered to women on a daily basis. Or we can decide that we want to spend the second half of our life, doing yoga, riding bikes, dancing our faces off, you name it, finding joy, right?
Well, that sounds good. Dancing our faces off and doing yoga. That sounds like a retreat to me, Shirley.
Let's do it.
I think we're going to have to. I haven't had one in a while, and I think I'm about to. And I really agree with you as far as the stereotypes and the things that we've been led to accept. And I also will go this far. I think that it really is a choice when you hit menopause, how you want to go through it. It's a choice, and you have to shift. The things that maybe you always did before to be in a certain, if being in shape is important to you, you may have to change them. Maybe you used to run 10 miles a day. I don't know, but maybe you're going to have to find a new way to work out if for some reason that, your joints are failing you, or, because you're not having the estrogen and all of the hormones. Sometimes it can also affect your joints and other things. Maybe you're going to have to find a new way to eat. And like I recently did, I gave up caffeine because it no longer served me. And so I think it's just finding those tweaks and realizing that, okay, this is just another shift.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I speak with so many women on a daily basis, and one of the things, I would say, identifying trends, if you will, that comes out of the community I work with is that this time of our lives, call it, whether it's 50, 53, whatever, women are experiencing an awakening. And they'll say things to me like, self-care. I'd never embraced it before, but now I get what you're talking about. Or, it might be an opportunity where women are identifying that they would like a new partner, or they'd like a new job, or they'd like a partner, or they'd like to be an entrepreneur. It's really it's a time for tweaking. And for some women, it's a time for turning things 180 degrees. It's very empowering.
It's definitely a time of change. And I think you can either just, I guess, fight it, or you can embrace it and make it your own,
Exactly.
Now, for everybody out there, can you explain the different stages? Because I think there's some confusion around what is perimenopause, what is menopause, and what is postmenopause.
I'm so glad you asked that. We spend the very first thing that we do in the Menopause Chicks community is to get everyone on the same page so that we can understand one another. And I spend a lot of my time working with even members of the media and the medical community to ensure the same. Because I will tell you, there's a term, perimenopause, which is actually what I'm talking about most of the time. And it was only invented. That term was only created in 1996. So it's relatively new. Before that, menopause was an umbrella term that kind of covered all of the hormone fluctuations and the end of menstruation. So menopause is one day. It's the 12-month anniversary of your final period. So after you've gone 12 months with no bleeding, you have reached menopause. You actually don't go through menopause, you reach it. I reached menopause at age 49. Perimenopause is a phase of life that you do go through, and it's different for every woman, but typically is 5 to 15 years leading up to menopause. And it can include a time of hormonal fluctuations, but it doesn't mean suffering. So that's something that I really want to emphasize with your listeners, is that perimenopause and menopause are not synonyms for suffering, and they're not synonyms for symptoms, which I think is too often what we read in media and magazines and some of the marketing messages. Perimenopause simply describes the phase of life that's at the opposite end of the teeter-totter from puberty. So prior to puberty, hormones start to fluctuate, and then eventually, around the age of 12, but I understand it's getting younger and younger, then girls get their period. Puberty is not that one day, it's the whole phase of preparing your body, right? Same thing happens in perimenopause, except it's preparing you for the end of menstruation. And then menopause is the 12-month anniversary, and then every day after menopause is postmenopause. You're in postmenopause for the rest of your life.
Now, so that means that we're done with menopause then. If we're in postmenopause, menopause is over.
Well, menopause is one day. I like to say, invent a cocktail and throw yourself a party, because it's only one day in your life. So
I love it. Now, when you do hit the stage of postmenopause,
yes,
what can we expect in that phase?
Oh, well, there's a number of things you can expect in postmenopause. Let me begin by saying that postmenopause really is, unless you have chosen hormone therapy, you are experiencing estrogen decline or depletion in postmenopause. Now, our adrenal glands do take over the production of some hormones, but certainly not at the same levels as years before. And so one of the topics that I really like to talk about with women around postmenopause is vaginal dryness. And that is something that, your hot flashes might dissipate, and your sleep might get better, and your mood swings might go away. And a lot of women choose to kind of ride those little waves. For some, 20% of women, they're big waves. But for most of us, they're changes that can be managed